I think the most interesting thing about being surrounded by people that you really, really don't want to align with and you want to get away from is that there is light on the other side of that, and you're going to be surrounded by people who you're just absolutely obsessed with. I have recently just been kind of coming to that realization, kind of coming to that light at the end of the tunnel, and sitting back and looking around and being like, holy shit, everyone around me, the people I spend the most time with, are incredibly smart. They're driven, they're caring, they're supportive, they're genuine, they're just like people I know that I can trust. And that has just been like so rewarding. And, you know, what I want to talk about today is like, how did I get to that point? And then what are the benefits or what are the side effects of being surrounded by people that you're just so obsessed with? Now, in the current chapter of my life, the people I spend the most time with are people that I love so much, I care about deeply, and I'm obsessed with them. Different aspects of them like really expand me and help me understand and learn different things, and also help me like step further into myself. Now, before being surrounded by these people, I was spending time with a lot of people who just like didn't quite resonate. And, you know, when I say, you know, the people I spend the most time with, those people are going to be in the workplace, because I spend 40 hours a week with these people. I don't spend that kind of time with anyone else. So it's interesting when you think about like the people you spend the most time with and those being work people. And I think sometimes we can all get ourselves in this state of mind where it's like, well, if I don't like the people I'm surrounded by at work, then I need to leave a job. Which in many cases that can be true, but what I've experienced is that, and what's so fascinating is that you can actually stay in the same job, but everyone around you shifts. Even in just the realization of that, I think what comes to my mind is like, oh my God, the universe is so magical. Like, it's not always a scenario where you have to leave the current environment in order to be surrounded by different people. But there's just things that you can change within yourself, and you can continue to grow within yourself. And by you up leveling, other people just fall off. And so how did that even happen, right? I've been asking myself, like, how does it? I'm super into manifestation, and I definitely have been practicing manifestation through To Be Magnetic throughout all of this. And, you know, I really believe in this work and how looking at all of your limiting beliefs and subconscious like programming that you picked up in childhood and throughout your younger years and throughout your adult life really, by looking at all of that and healing, you know, the painful memories and the fear and the shame and all the things that we carry with us, it's incredible what kind of change can happen around you. And so when I say this, you know, I think about the people I used to be surrounded by. I think what was so difficult about being surrounded by the people I was previously surrounded by is that I didn't feel like I could trust them fully. I felt like, you know, each day I was like, oh, are they going to stab me in the back today or what? You know, it was just this like constant need to have my back up straight in the chair and be looking behind me to make sure that no one's going to attack. And, you know, I think about as I was going through those interactions and being constantly surrounded by those people, I mean, just being on meetings with them every second of the day, every night or on the days when I was so triggered and so upset and so frustrated by having to be surrounded by these people, I would just really focus on, okay, what is this experience linking back to in childhood? Because the reason why this experience is coming up now in the present moment is because it links back to an experience I had in childhood. And so it was like over a year and a half, I would say, of just like doing that every single day. And while I wasn't so excited to be spending, 40 hours a week with these people, I was so focused on extracting everything that I needed to learn out of the experience. So anytime I was getting triggered, like so triggered and like fuming, and like there were a few times where I had to like leave, get up and like go for a drive because I was just like on fire inside. By linking, whatever was coming up in the present moment back to an experience in childhood, I was able to heal like through using the To Be Magnetic tools. And it's like this self-hypnosis process. By using that, I was able to heal the childhood memories that were the root cause of like why this stuff was showing up in my present day life. So, like I said, these people, it was a lot of just not feeling like I could trust these people, feeling like they would twist the words that I said, or we would speak about something and then they would come back with something different and almost try to throw me under the bus. And, it was things like that I just weren't cool at all. And I felt a lot of the frustration at the time was feeling like, oh my God, I feel like I've up leveled out of this. But clearly I haven't, because it's showing up in my day-to-day life. And so the more I could heal the childhood experiences where I didn't feel like I could trust people and I felt like I would get stabbed in the back. If I said certain things, I felt like I would get stabbed in the back at some point, and not necessarily right after I said the thing, but maybe it would be a delay. And so it was a lot of healing around those experiences. And, slowly over time, you just chip away at it. And, it's interesting because you can't, if I think about this through the lens of manifestation, like in To Be Magnetic, they say like, you can't manifest for other people. And, so it's interesting that everyone I work with kind of manifested this new group of people to collaborate with, which I think is super interesting. But so I'm not really sure what to think about that. But I think if I had to draw a conclusion about why that is, I think every single person that I still work with, that I worked with at that time, we were all sort of in a similar position of like not loving the people that we were spending the most time with outside of each other. And so if I really think about, God, like what would have had to change for all of us in order to bring in these new collaborators, in order for us to reconfigure who we spend the most time with. And if I look at the lives of everyone who was involved in this, it's almost like we were all growing and stepping in further into ourselves, and whatever wasn't working in our lives, we were actively working to heal or overcome or step through or move past. And I think by everyone doing that, you create this like collective energy where everyone is just craving for something new and something better, and everyone is ready to up level. So I think that was something really beautiful that kind of was happening on the peripheral area. It's like the outside edge of, my own personal world. Every single day you were chipping away at, whatever these people were triggering in you. I was doing that for myself. And over time, you just get to a point where it's so interesting, energy starts to build as it's like the collective energy starts to rise. And then you find yourself in a space where it's like, okay, we're releasing these old collaborators, these people who we used to spend a bunch of time with. And then we're bringing in these new collaborators. And oh my God, these people are amazing. Like, as human beings, they're amazing. And it's like the complete opposite of what it was before, where it's like, before I was like, God, I don't know if I could trust these people. I feel like they're going to stab me in the back. To now, it's like, oh my God, we couldn't be more of a team. And, we're all in this together, and it's so supportive, and it's so like everyone has each other's backs. And I think it's so beautiful. Like and these people have been in my world for several months now, but I was just kind of coming to this realization in this past week, because we're all in person together. And, it was kind of a mix of like White Lotus meets Severance meets Secret Garden, in the sense of, so we all met in this place that felt like a knockoff version of the White Lotus in Thailand. And in that, we were at a conference, so we were all there for work, but there was also a lot of elements mixed in that were very much play. And so when you mix in these elements of play over the course of several days, you really get to know people, and certain things come up. And so while we were there, I was able to spend time with like all the people that I talk to the most and energetically spend the most time with. We were finally together in person, and it was so interesting because, when you spend so much time with people, especially in the workplace, when you get outside of the true work environment and into like, a different activity that's related to work, you start to have more personal conversations, and you can get to know people on a personal level. But this is where I felt like I was in Severance, because people would come up to me and be like, okay, Allie, tell me your life story. And I'm like, what life story? Like, I've felt like yes, I've lived on this earth 31 years, and somehow I have no access to my life story. Like, I can't even think of what to tell you. And, I think I totally felt like I was in the show Severance. But also, I've been thinking about that, because this does relate to Secret Garden, in that, I go back to how my old coworker in Chicago sitting me down in a bar and being like, you know everything about me and I know nothing about you. So I'm going to start asking you questions until I feel like I know you. And, it was that same thing coming up of just like so many invitations for me to open up to people. And I was having a little bit of a difficult time doing that. And I was trying to think of like, well, why is it that when someone comes to me and is like, Allie, tell me your life story, I literally don't know what to say. Like, why is that? And I think it's because my whole life, so over the course of my life, I've had to get really good at Greyrocking, which I don't know if you've heard of this method, but it's like when you're dealing with somebody who is super manipulative or toxic or narcissistic, Greyrocking is when you become so uninteresting that it like makes the interaction be so dull to where that manipulative person gets so bored with you that they just go away and they find a new target. And I think this is my whole life. I've had to become really good at Greyrocking. And, in my younger years, I didn't even know what Greyrocking was, and I didn't know that that was a tactic, and I didn't know how to do it. And so before learning how to Greyrock, I would, there would be people around me who would be particularly focused on getting emotional reactions out of me. So they would say something to me and I would just like blow up. And that's exactly what they wanted. But then, that left me feeling all sorts of feelings from that. So over time, and through therapy, I started to learn about this Greyrocking method. And over the last several years, I've become very good at it, like very good at it, to the point where it's like somebody could say, like, no matter what people say to me, I don't have an emotional reaction, or like I don't have a visible emotional reaction. And what I was realizing this week in just being surrounded by people who I'm obsessed with and like I want to connect with them, I think what I was realizing is that this whole Greyrocking method just can't be applied to everyone in my life. Like it can't be a copy paste over every interaction I ever have. And I think that's something that's really, it's almost like nuanced. So the way I had to learn Greyrocking was like to apply it to most relationships in my life, because I couldn't, that was like how I learned the method, was to apply it to everything. And now as I move into like this new phase of working with that energy, I think I have to figure out the time and the place to use it. And so what was very clear to me in hanging out with people that I love hanging out with, it's like, okay, I don't need to Greyrock here. I don't need to be so uninteresting, because these people genuinely want to get to know me, and they aren't trying to get to know me so that they can spin something against me. It's not going to become a stabbing in the back situation, but it's just pure curiosity and love and care that they're coming at me with. And I think that's where in my mind I'm like, whoa, what are we doing here? And so I automatically default to being so uninteresting. And, I think that was something that I was really having to work through. And if you're listening and you have also had to deal with manipulative or toxic or narcissistic people in your life, and you've had to Greyrock, like, I totally understand. And I would imagine you would also go through this similar thing of like, now that I've had to Greyrock for so long, how do I know when to not do that? And how can I make sure that like it's on a subconscious level where it's like pausing and almost like talking your inner child through the process of like, okay, Greyrocking has worked in many situations, but this is not a situation where I need to utilize that tactic. And instead I am safe to just open up. And I'm safe to let these people in, because it's only going to make our connection stronger, and it's only going to allow both of us to grow, because we know so much about each other and we know where each other comes from. And so in that, you're learning how to support people even more and support each other even more and just help elevate everyone. So it has totally been a journey of me just like figuring out how to open up. And I constantly run into scenarios like this where it's like, oh, another layer of me not knowing how to open up, or me using tactics in relationships that like don't apply or don't need to apply to the dynamic that I'm currently in. But this was making me think about this like burning question that I've had, which is like, how do you build deep connection in the most surface level place in the world, which is the corporate world. Like, how do you do that? And, as I was spending time with people in person and getting to know them, outside of work, and then connecting it back to what I know about them with working with them, you really get a full view of a person, and you start to build that deep connection. And I think the more connected you feel to someone, the more deeply you care about someone, the more you're going to want to show love through love languages. So whether it's quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, gifts, like all of those kind of come into play, and they become super obvious when you're in person, I think. When you're in person with people over a span of several days, and you get to know them, get to know how they operate. And so I think that was one of the most like beautiful things about spending time in person with people you spend the most time with, is that you could understand how they give and receive love. So it's like maybe, and really like the in-person component is you start to understand who really prioritizes physical touch as a love language. And me even speaking about love languages in the context of a workplace, I'm sure someone in HR is screaming somewhere. But, it's such a useful tool. And I think we're really missing out if we don't utilize those tools when thinking about the people you spend the most time with, which happen to be coworkers. But, if you have such a close connection, then you need to be able to utilize love languages. So, I'm thinking about like the quality time of just like creating time in your schedule to connect with people. If you see that they aren't doing well, it's creating time to connect with them one-on-one. It's letting them know that you're there for them. It's showing up in a way that you're there for them. Or maybe it's like words of affirmation where the person like really needs reassurance and praise, and just they need to hear how well they're doing, and they need to hear that they're okay, and that they're, it's just verbalizing the things that you really enjoy about them, or the things that they're doing really well. And, then we go into like acts of service, where it's like, this is someone who will literally take on additional work in order to protect you, or in order to take things off of your plate, or in order to prevent you from having to do the thing that you don't want to do or that you don't love. Even if they don't want to take it on, they're going to take it on anyways, because their love language is acts of service. And then there's gifts, which it's where people are really thinking about you, and they're bringing you, different gifts from if they live in a different country or a different state, and it's something that's, they know it's rare for you, but they want to bring it to you. So it's something that feels really special like that. And then there's also physical touch. And so this is where being in person with people, you really start to understand like how much physical touch is a priority. And, I know HR is probably screaming. But physical touch, like as somebody who, so my love language is quality time and then followed by physical touch. And like, I think being in person was super helpful, because then you can start to understand like who else also has that kind of love language. And you can also give and receive love in that way. So these love languages can be so helpful in making sure that people feel loved, and them making sure that you feel loved. But I think, as I've been able to clock people's love languages more and more, I've also been finding myself trying to orient to other people's love languages, right? So, because the way I give love isn't necessarily the way somebody else wants to receive it. So, for example, like my primary love language is quality time. If my friend's love language primarily is words of affirmation, I have to figure out how to meet them there. And so, what I've really been having to orient myself around is like, okay, how can I give them praise, give them reassurance? If they come to me asking for praise and asking for reassurance over and over again, like, how can I show up in a way that makes them feel really supported and loved? And, I think that's one of the things that I've really been having to work on. And it's one of those things that I want to work on, right? Because I want to make sure that this person feels cared for and loved. I think what I've been realizing is like, the more that we can identify and understand how somebody wants to receive love, and the more we can show up in the way that they like to receive love, I think the deeper the connection you can build. The more you enjoy the people that you're around and you're genuinely enjoying them, and you could spend a bunch of time with them and not get tired of them. I think, you all might get tired of socializing, but like in general, if everyone you're surrounded by, you're just like, oh my God, I love these people so much, I think the more you're going to want to give and receive love. And through that, you build deep connection in the most surface level place, right? The corporate world. These connections are so beneficial to us because they can help us reduce stress. They can make our problems feel smaller. They can reduce blind spots. So if you open up and you talk about compensation, or you talk about, career trajectory, if you talk about, maybe there's certain things that you're privy to, but they're not, or they're privy to, but you're not, and you're just sharing the knowledge or the information, that helps you reduce blind spots, and it helps both of you navigate certain situations in a different way. It's almost like you're counseling each other on how to move forward. And I think that just can be so beneficial. Also, these sort of connections can make you feel like you aren't alone in the chaos, no matter how chaotic it is. And these people can also be a vision holder for you. So if you can create a space where you're both sharing what you really want, what you really need, everyone else can rally around you and be a vision holder for you and support you and help you figure out how to get to that next step and that next level. Because really, I think what this all goes back to is like, I think the people that we're surrounded by are a reflection of where we are in our own self-worth, or where we are in our own journey. They're here to teach us something. So if you're surrounded by people that you don't like and you don't feel aligned with, there's something to look at there. Like, who are they reminding you of? What experiences are they reminding you of? And how can you heal those experiences? Because as soon as you heal those experiences, all those people that you don't want to be surrounded by, they're going to just fall out of your life, or they're going to go from your daily life to maybe you see them every once in a while. And it's so incredible how that happens. And then when you get to a place of being surrounded by people you love and are obsessed with, and you're like, oh my God, these people, every single person is teaching me something new. By being obsessed with the people you're surrounded by, I think that's an indication of the growth that you've already done. But then beyond that, it's like, to get to that next level, we're almost all growing together. It's just been such a breath of fresh air to sit back and look around and be like, damn, I love the people I'm surrounded by the most. And we're all working on different things. We all have similar ambitions and lenses on the world. And maybe somebody else has a certain perspective that I don't, and I'm inspired by their perspective, and I'm learning from them, and I'm learning how to adopt that perspective. If, for the perspectives that I'm like really feeling drawn to. And so it's just how we all continue to up level. And so if you're sitting here and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe the people I'm surrounded by, they don't resonate with me anymore. It's like XYZ, I'm so frustrated with them. I don't feel like I fit in. If you're feeling that, look at everything they're triggering inside of you, and then how does that relate back to childhood? If you want more tools on this, I highly recommend To Be Magnetic. They have self-hypnosis processes in there where you can start to sink back into your subconscious. You could bring your subconscious forward. You can understand what limiting beliefs are there. And then you could start to clear them away so that you can get rid of all the people that you don't align with in your life, or at least the people that you're surrounded by the most. Because you want those people to be the most nourishing, supportive, loving, caring people. So if you're interested in To Be Magnetic and you want to become a Pathway member, that's what I am. I'm a Pathway member. I've been a member of TBM for I think going on 4 years maybe. I've included a discount code in the show notes below for 15% off your membership. So the tool is there. I highly recommend it. It can support you in getting rid of all the people that you don't want to be surrounded by and help you fill your life with people that you're like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with these people. Thank you so much for being here. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.